The Vatican may not have yet recognized the miracle of Medjugorje at the moment, but that's not discouraging the faithful. A small village in Bosnia-Herzegovina is the fastest growing Catholic pilgrimage site in the world, rivaling Lourdes or Fatima. 29 years ago, pilgrims believe the Virgin Mary appeared to 6 school children and that she's still appearing today to several of them. But this religious fervour is taking place in a country where faith equals ethnic identity and where battles over that identity were at the heart of a long and bloody war. Alan Little, who reported on the war in Bosnia, has been back to the country to explore the Medjugorje phenomenon.
What intensity of passion, what depth of devotion compels a pilgrim to do this? The day is hot and the terrain is unyielding. But this is Apparition Hill. It is where the Virgin Mary appeared on a day much like this in the summer of 1981 and spoke to 6 local teenagers. Or so the pilgrims believe. It put Medjugorje, until then a remote and unremarkable mountain village, on the international pilgrimage map.
When the first apparition took place on this spot 29 years ago, Medjugorje was just a handful of little stone houses, a tiny, impoverished mountain village in the middle of nowhere. From up here, you can see how the apparitions have transformed the place.
The Catholic Church doesn't recognize the miracle, it's still investigating. But how long can it hold out against rapture on this scale? Hundreds of thousands make this trek every year. At this time of year, there are 600 priests here. You can stand in line to confess your sins, seek absolution in any one of a dozen languages. No one here has a shred of doubt.
Do you believe the Virgin Mary comes here?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, I do. Some of the testimonies that we've heard, the young girl yesterday who was crippled and had to be carried up the mountain. They dropped, well, she slipped and fell on the way down, and later she walked.
This is the home of Ivan Dragicevic, one of the 6 teenagers who first saw the Virgin on the mountainside.
Hello, Ivan.
Nice to meet you.
And you.
He divides his time now between Medjugorje and Massachusetts. Ivan is one of 3 seers or visionaries whom Mary still appears to every day. A handful of pilgrims are specially invited to witness the apparition. The apparition is to happen at precisely 6:40. The intensity builds as the minutes tick by. Then the moment comes. Ivan sees Mary, the latest of more than 8,000 visitations he's experienced over 3 decades. For 7 or 8 minutes, he listens and converses. Then it's all over. He tells the pilgrims what he has heard, and then takes questions. I asked him what language she speaks to him in. Pure, clean Croatian, he tells me. Even I understand it, he jokes.
Describe how Our Lady looked this evening.
Someone else asks what she looks like. You see this statue, he says, a lot like that. Her beauty is hard to describe, and she floats on a cloud. Ivan has rock star status among the pilgrims. They listen to his speeches on headsets that provide simultaneous translation in several languages. He doesn't often give interviews, so this, we are invited to understand, is a privilege.
You live in America now, so how does it work when you meet new people there and they ask you what you do? Do you say, well, I get visited by the Virgin Mary?
A lot of people ask me that, and a lot of good comes from them asking me that question.
We then talk about deeper things, about everything. And I help people to get back on the right path.
A lot of people around the world say those kids, those 6 kids, have become quite rich telling their story.
Nobody's ever said that to me. Money is essential to modern life. We have to support our family and our children. Everyone needs money, and is that a sin? I don't think that's a sin.
The apparitions have brought commerce to Medjugorje. It has the feel of a Christian theme park. Buy a cheap plastic souvenir and have it blessed by a Medjugorje priest, and its value to the faithful is limitless.
And this one is Virgin Mary in a snowstorm.
You are buying part of the miracle.
The Virgin Mary's brought wealth to this town, hasn't she?
Of course, of course. You can see it, can't you? Nobody's trying to deny it. But that's not why Our Lady came here, to make us rich. We do live well thanks to her. People need a place to sleep, a place to eat.
You have the Croatian football scarf there. Why not?
That's because I'm a Croat. And I've got the Croatian coat of arms right here.
Fate has placed Medjugorje in Bosnia-Herzegovina, but you wouldn't know it from the symbols on display or from the sentiment of the people. 15 years ago, an internationally brokered peace plan placed them in a state shared with their Muslim neighbours, their former enemies. But they still consider Zagreb, not Sarajevo, their nation's capital.
For the foreign pilgrims who come here, it's a straightforward matter of celebrating their Catholic faith. But for local Bosnian Croats, it's much more than that, because faith and national identity are inseparable here. The Catholic Church, with all its rich and evocative symbolism, is a powerful vehicle for the expression of Croatian national aspiration. It's the way you assert yourself as a Bosnian Croat.
For many local priests, the apparitions chimed with a very secular, very political aspiration.
It was just like the trumpets of Jericho. It was for us a sign of release after centuries and centuries of enslavement. It was like a response to our prayers that heaven should give a sign to the people that people are not forgotten.
10 years after the first apparition, war came. The people divided along religious lines. Many of the country's Christians, Orthodox Serbs in the east, Catholic Croats in the west, fought to dismember the country called Bosnia-Herzegovina and to carve out ethnically pure states of their own. This is the town of Stolac, not far from Medjugorje. Thousands of Muslims were driven from their homes here in what was known as ethnic cleansing. Since the war, many have come back. But for them, public displays of group allegiance that might seem harmless, even benign to outsiders, are loaded with meaning.
Is what happens at Medjugorje in some way an expression of Croatian national aspiration or ambition?
Very much. How else would you explain something that should be a religious site of, let's say, religious catharsis, serving as a place for display of nationalist ideology? Going to Medjugorje, most of the hosts will welcome you to Croatia. Most of the people, ironically, even there, think they're living in Croatia. So this is one of the clear displays of how, unfortunately, the religious institutions are very much linked to the nationalist leaders here.
Once or twice I came to Medjugorje during the war. Then the place was full of young men in military uniform, fresh from the front lines, tired, drawn, taciturn. In my mind's eye, I see them here, in the spaces where the pilgrims are now. Some who fought cling to the dream of separation from Bosnia even now.
We have to try the political route first to get our own republic, but then we have the right to unilateral action. Whether it's war or some other form of uprising, we have the right to self-defense. I don't care what a Muslim in Mostar, an Englishman or an American will say about that. I only care about my freedom. We're the only nation in Europe that's not free. The Croats of Bosnia-Herzegovina.
The Catholic faith was central to the war. It was central to what the Croats here were fighting for. It is central to what many of them still dream of. They looked then to the church for spiritual validation. And that aspiration, that yearning for national redemption, endures.
Here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croats here don't have any protector. The Serbs have Russia, the Muslims have Turkey, but we have nobody. We are alone and left alone.
More and more pilgrims come here every year, largely unaware of the political and ethnic fault line that Medjugorje straddles, and of the enduring tensions here.
Tell me, why do you come here?
Because it's such a beautiful place. Love, peace and joy. Feel it? Can you feel it? It is absolutely amazing.
And where does it come from?
Our Lady.
It is a fantastic display of diversity. There are flags of every nation here. But there's one flag that's very, very notable by its absence. The flag of the country we're actually in. There's not a single Bosnian flag in this entire procession. There's not a single person here whose primary national loyalty, national allegiance, is to the country we're in. And that is very troubling.
Local Croats fought a war to dismember Bosnia-Herzegovina. Many remain unreconciled to the state they now share with their former enemies. Bosnia's three national groups, each defined by the faith it embraces, are pulling away from each other, and the Bosnian state is sleepwalking towards failure.
And a little back in Bosnia.